Chinese leader Xi Jinping is rewriting the Communist Party's history. Is he finally winning the power struggle? Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. It's good to be presentator. That's what I call Chinese leader Xi Jinping, because he's not quite a president, not quite a dictator, he's a presentator. Last week, Xi Jinping took a big step towards extending his official position as the head of the Chinese Communist Party. He rewrote history in his image. Okay, maybe that doesn't sound so impressive. After all, the Communist Party rewrites history all the time, like when they claim the South China Sea has been part of China since ancient times, and then requires that all maps made in China include the 9-dash line that marks their territorial claim. But this isn't just any rewriting of history. It's a special rewriting of the Chinese Communist Party's own history. And in the party's 100 years of existence, it's only been rewritten twice before, by these guys, the most powerful rulers of the party. And now that Xi Jinping has done the same, he's elevating himself to their level. As a recent Chinese state-run media article put it, Xi Jinping is undoubtedly the core figure mastering the tide of history. A totally normal thing to say. The Chinese Communist Party has always been obsessed with history, particularly controlling the historical narrative. As George Orwell wrote in his book 1984, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. But the Chinese Communist Party isn't just obsessed with history because they're using 1984 as an instruction manual. They're also obsessed because China is a country with thousands of years of history. And the party has an inferiority complex. Because even though it's been around for 100 years now, it's only ruled China for 72 years. Even the Mongols ruled China for longer than that. And like the Mongol Empire, the Communist Party was a foreign entity. The party is based on Marxism-Leninism, a foreign ideology. And the Chinese Communist Party was partially founded by the Soviet Union, a foreign power. According to a Russian-language document of the Communist International, 12 people, 10 Chinese and 2 Soviet organizers, attended the Chinese Communist Party's founding Congress in Shanghai on July 23, 1921. Its foreign background means the Communist Party always feels like it has to emphasize how Chinese it is, like when it talks about socialism with Chinese characteristics. This is also why the Communist Party constantly talks about how they are the destined heirs to thousands of years of Chinese history and culture. You know, after they spent decades destroying thousands of years of Chinese history and culture. But the great thing about rewriting history is you can forget about all that stuff. Now you know why the party cares a lot about controlling history. So what does this new historical resolution say? I'll tell you after the break. Welcome back. Chinese leader Xi Jinping has been in power for almost a decade, and through that entire time, he's been locked in a power struggle with former leader and mummified toad Jiang Zemin. But last week, Xi struck a huge blow to the Jiang faction by getting this new historical resolution passed by the party's Central Committee. It's the worst episode of General Hostility ever. This time on General Hostility, backstabbing, corruption, power struggles, takedowns. All so Xi Jinping can publish a 36,000-word resolution on the historical experience of the Chinese Communist Party over the last century. In this episode, we learn Xi Jinping's true superpower, mind-numbing boringness. But that's a Communist Party for you. On one hand, iron-fisted rule, bloody purges, and murderous struggle sessions. On the other hand, an immense soulless bureaucracy powered by mandatory ideological study sessions, which is how we get to a 36,000-word document that is expected to extend Xi Jinping's rule. Officially, it's called the Resolution of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China on the major achievements and historical experience of the party over the past century, adopted at the 6th plenary session of the 19th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. Wow, I barely got through that. The resolution starts off by talking about how the Chinese Communist Party has remained true to its original aspiration and mission of seeking happiness for the Chinese people and rejuvenation for the Chinese nation. And for all the people who say China's not really communist anymore, the party would like you to know they are super communist. And also, they rock, in their opinion. The endeavors of the party and the people over the past century represent the most magnificent chapter in the millennial-long history of the Chinese nation. That's like me telling my parents I'm the most magnificent son they ever had, in my opinion. Anyway, what follows is 65 pages of the party's retelling of their glorious history, heavily influenced by Xi Jinping. In fact, Xi Jinping is mentioned 25 times in the resolution. Mao Zedong gets mentioned 18 times. Deng Xiaoping gets 6 mentions, and Hu Jintao and Jiang Zemin get 1 mention each. Ouch. But what about when the party's history was less than glorious? Like the Great Leap Forward that killed tens of millions of people, or the Cultural Revolution? Well, you see, mistakes were made. The resolution does admit Mao himself made some errors, which is similar to language used by the party before. But you see, it wasn't really Mao's fault. The real villains were Lin Biao and Mao's wife, Jiang Qing. What is notable is this is the party's first historical resolution since 1981, which means it's the first one to mention the Tiananmen Square Massacre. Sort of. It calls the 1989 student democracy movement a severe political disturbance that was egged on by hostile anti-communist and anti-socialist forces abroad. Thank Mao the party was there defending China's socialist state power and safeguarding the fundamental interests of the people by shooting thousands of unarmed youths in the street. Oh, sorry, that last part was me ad-libbing. But while this is a so-called historical resolution, it's actually a blueprint for Xi Jinping's vision for the future of the party. I'll explain how after the break. Welcome back. Xi Jinping and the Communist Party will be using this historical resolution to control the past and the future of China. I mentioned earlier that the party had 2 previous historical resolutions. The first resolution was by Mao Zedong in 1945. After the Yan'an rectification movement. That's when Mao purged his rivals and became the top leader of the Communist Party. Mao also used the resolution to change the direction of the Communist Party. The second resolution was by Deng Xiaoping in 1981. It changed the direction of the party once again, away from the Cultural Revolution and towards reform and opening up, when the party started allowing private businesses in China. This third resolution is Xi Jinping putting his stamp on the Communist Party and its future direction. And significantly, this new resolution, which the New York Times calls practically holy writ for officials, will shape China's politics and society for decades to come. And since the New York Times compared this to the Communist Party's Bible, yes, there will be Bible study. The touchstone document on the party's past is sure to become the focus of an intense indoctrination campaign. A huge focus of the resolution is Xi Jinping thought on socialism with Chinese characteristics for a new era, Xi's signature political ideology. The resolution defines it as the result of adapting Marxism to China and Chinese culture. Like I said earlier, this is a sign of the party's inferiority complex. So what does this mean for the party's future direction? For one, the party is going to take more control over the Chinese economy. The resolution talks about common prosperity and anti-monopoly regulation. These are both things the party used this summer to justify its crackdown on private corporations. So if you triple your investment in China, BlackRock, you're going to be tripling the money you give the Chinese regime. Money they will use to conquer Taiwan. The resolution calls taking over Taiwan an unshakable commitment of the party and essential to realizing national rejuvenation. As for issues like Hong Kong, Tibet, Xinjiang, and the South China Sea, yeah, things are only going to get worse there too. And the party will also look for more control over the global internet, not just the Chinese internet. In fact, it talks about the internet as the main arena, battleground, and front line of the ideological struggle. The bottom line is Xi Jinping is determined to double down on the aggressive path the Communist Party is already on now. And this historical resolution will make it harder for others in the party to change this path, because they've now all officially agreed that it's the correct historical path. Barring any huge catastrophes, Xi Jinping should be able to keep his rule when the party meets again next fall. And unless the rest of the world does more to stand up against the Chinese Communist Party, the new era won't be very magnificent for anyone else. And now, an important announcement from all of us at China Uncensored. We finally have merch! Check it out on our website, ChinaUncensored.tv. Some of you might remember we used to have a merch store on our YouTube page. Unfortunately, Teespring closed our store permanently because of this t-shirt. I'm not sure who they are more afraid of, Xi Jinping or Disney. Anyway, we lost the store and all the money after Teespring refused to return any of it. And so began our long search for a company that would work with us and would also help us find products that are not made in China. But at long last, we have succeeded. Maybe you'd like a nifty mug with our new China Uncensored logo, or a classic Xi Jinping the Pooh shirt. Or how about a t-shirt featuring the Chinese Communist Cthulhu taking over Hong Kong? Or maybe you're more of a minimalist and you'd like a China Uncensored t-shirt with an actual quote from state-run China Daily calling us disgraceful anti-China garbage. These shirts and mugs would also make some lovely holiday presents. So visit ChinaUncensored.tv/merchandise, get some cool stuff, and support the show. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.